I'm joined by U.S. Representative Dan Kildee, who is in Landstuhl, Germany tonight after meeting with Amir Hekmati. He's the former U.S. Marine who was released by Iran on Saturday after 4+ years of imprisonment. Congressman Kildee represents Hekmati's home district in Michigan and has long worked for his release. And thanks so much for joining us. So you met with Amir Hekmati today. Tell us about the meeting. What was his condition?
Well, first of all, it was a great day. It was the first time I'd ever actually met Amir Hekmati, despite the fact that I've been working on his case for so long and feel like I've come to know him. I gave him a great big hug, told him how proud I was of him, and really we spent time together just talking and chatting. He told me a little bit about the time he was in prison, but mostly we just talked about how great it is for him to be free. We had dinner together tonight with his 2 sisters and his brother-in-law. You know, he looks pretty good for a guy who has spent the last 4.5 years in one of the worst prisons in the world. You'd expect him to not look so strong. He's lost some weight, at least according to what we can tell from the pictures. I hadn't met him before. He looks thinner, but he looks good, and he sounds strong. It will take time for him to come back home and be fully reintegrated, but I think he's in good shape.
We have a photograph of Amir Hekmati in the prison in Iran. It was provided to us by Maziar Bahari, a journalist and former prisoner there. And there were reports even in recent days of Amir being treated for a medical condition. What did he tell you about his treatment there and his medical condition?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. Anytime you're not able to move around, and he's a young athletic guy, it takes a physical toll. And not being able to exercise as he had become accustomed, I think, had an effect on his health. It's been a tough 4.5 years. He was in solitary confinement for a part of it. For a number of months, he was facing a death sentence. So the physical strain, but also the psychological impact of that kind of an experience, obviously is tough. But I was impressed by his spirit. He's anxious to get back home and restart his life. He's a young man. He's got a long future ahead of him. You know, and again, he's got a whole community that loves him and is looking forward to welcoming him back home and helping him restart his life.
Was he aware, and for that matter, Congressman, were you aware of the negotiations? Did he know how close he was to a release, or that this might be in the works?
Well, he had heard that it might happen a few days before, but he had heard that before. So I think he put it in that same context. And what he told me, it wasn't until he was actually taken to the airport that he knew that this time it was going to be different. I had been in contact, of course, with the State Department and the White House for the last few years working on this, and we had a sense that things were getting close through the discussions that we had. But these situations are always delicate until they happen. And so obviously we were just absolutely thrilled when we discovered that, yep, this time he's actually coming home.
And let me ask you finally, you know there are critics of the swap aspect of the deal, people who think that the U.S. should have demanded an unconditional release of the prisoners in Iran. What's your response?
Well, in a perfect world, we would get everything we want. We would have our way, and we would hold everybody else to the standards that we would like to hold ourselves to. But we don't live in a perfect world. And, you know, I look at Amir Hekmati coming home, and I understand that we had to do a lot. We had to fight to get him home. When I sat with Amir Hekmati and had dinner with him tonight, it was absolutely clear to me that it was consistent with our American principles to get him home. And I think any critic of this really has to ask themselves whether or not they're living in the world that we live in or the one they would like to live in. The people who are in positions of authority actually have to get things done, and I commend the President, the Secretary of State, and others who worked on this. It's a happy day, and I'm thrilled about it.
Congressman Dan Kildee of Michigan from Landstuhl, Germany. Thank you so much.